And also, for the first time ever, this is on Periscope and YouTube. So, obviously, if you're on YouTube, hit the like button, do subscribe. Thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure. We can still get all your comments, so do send those through. And also, if you're on Periscope, I get your comments as well, I think. So do comment, like, share, retweet, all of that kind of lovely, funky stuff. Joining me this evening, and I'll be honest, if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be going live, even though we are going live late. It is Hermans. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine, Paul, but how are you? What is this? You're thinking about cancelling a show? What's going on in your life?
I know. I know, exactly. Yeah, actually cancelling a whole show. Jeez. Sorry, you were called Grant there for a second. Let me just change let me get the right title for you and move it over. There we go. So, yes, basically I wanted to go watch the movie Tag. It was on to get the special $10 deal. Basically meant going watching it tonight. And then I thought, you know what? I'm out with a couple of mates, having watched the movie. Let's have a couple of beers. 8 o'clock came and went, and it's kind of like got home. It's like, yeah, a bit knackered. Am I going to do this or not? And you were like, Paul, come on, you must do this. So, hey, here we are.
All right.
So you're my accountability friend, or
whatever
it's called.
Put it all on me. Whatever happens tonight is all on me.
All on you. So yes. So
yeah.
All the rubbish you hear from now on in, and my succinct analysis is all Herman's fault.
Should be up for a good show.
Thank you for joining. As I say, let us know the comments. We do listen to the comments that are in the live chat and respond to them. So maybe not typed, but we'll speak back to them. So first up, Blues versus the Reds. This was the Blues' final chance to get a win in the regular season. At home. Sorry, not in the regular season. They've got 2 more games to come. This is their last chance to get a win at home, and
they did it.
They did it. Yes, they did it. Yeah. Woo! Blues. But initially, it wasn't looking that way. I mean, I think I missed the first. I missed the first 4 minutes, but the Blues had already given up a penalty at that point. Sure, they got one back soon afterwards. We had but 3 scrum penalties against the Blues in the first 13 minutes. Things weren't looking very good. But and we then saw I sent out a tweet before the game showing the lineup of the Blues backs and went, how many centres can you see in this lineup? I can see an awful lot of wings and fullbacks, but I can't see any centres because it was a bit of a strange lineup for the Blues, wasn't it?
Yeah, but what did you really expect? Seriously, you're a Blues fan.
There are injuries, yes, but I've never seen Collins play centre before. He is a fullback through and through, as far as I'm concerned. Apparently, he has played centre before he joined the Blues, like 2 or 3 years ago. We've got Rico at 12, Collins at 13. Then we had Clark, Nanai, and Duffy at fullback. And Duffy's much better on the wing than he is at fullback. So, whereas Nanai has played fullback before, yeah, he's a bit.
Come on, Paul. You finally got a win at home, and here you are complaining about the Blues. My God.
No, I'm just saying, before the game, that's kind of what I was saying. And we kind of saw that for the first try because Rico trying to throw a long pass, all kind of loopy to Nanai, and then Nanai showing his great footwork to get over, but they should have made it look a bit easier than that.
Well, my expectation of the Blues are very low after this season, so whenever they do something good for a consistent period of time, I applaud them. I'm not expecting it.
Yeah, and I got that score. But it was looking tight up to that point. It was looking tight at that point, and then we had our regulatory cards come out, and the Reds picked up two yellow cards. I had no particular problem with. Actually, the first one was the tip tackle was clear. The second one, perhaps a little bit unlucky for no attempt of wrapping arms because he was down low. But you got to be the top tackle. You got to be careful with. What really upset me was with the commentators with comments along the lines of I thought June was past. And that's and then Merton's comment of that might be correct by the letter of the law, but I'd rather be dyslexic. Well, you know what? Being dyslexic, Mertz, I really did not appreciate that comment at all. That was BS, absolute rubbish of you. So please don't go there again. Maybe being a bit sensitive. But yeah, the commentators are
it's
not
a bit
helping
funny,
the
isn't it?
sport at all.
You have to give it to Mertz. He got some wits.
He's not got wit at all.
A little bit. I mean, that's a little bit funny.
No, it's oafish.
And I understand it's offending too, but it can be offending and funny at the same time.
Well, maybe. And the Blues took advantage of those 2 yellow cards, racked up the points, got themselves 21-6 ahead, and basically that was it. Game over, wasn't it?
Yeah. But I've had a weird kind of feeling on this game. Not like right from the start, but from pretty early, you had the sense that as soon as the Blues will sort out the scrum, this is going to be a win for them. The Reds forward pack that usually been able to dominate their opponents pretty well in some games. They didn't really get the big upper hand on the Blues. So, could you really see the Reds winning that one?
No, not really. And they didn't help themselves either. Confusion in the second half. Who was actually collecting the ball and managed to knock it on, and then the person in the offside position picking it up, giving another easy 3 points, and then the Blues just pull away even further. And so there were those. And then Perifetta then bashed over. And if we look at some of the stats, clean breaks, 14 by the Blues, 2 by the Reds. So clearly, the Blues had the upper hand. They made the most of those 2 yellow cards. When they got 2 yellow cards themselves, the Reds really couldn't do much with it, to be honest.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a bit of a one-sided affair. Nearly 600 metres running by the Blues, only 150 by the Queensland. So 4 times as many by the Blues. Gives you an idea. With only about 1.5 times as many runs. So they were much more much more clinical, much more effective than the Reds were. Also, the Reds' tackling wasn't great. The Blues, a bit of a penalty machine, giving up 14 penalties, but that was fine. They managed to overcome that by just being more effective.
Yeah.
We then headed off to the second game of the evening over to Melbourne for the Rebels versus the Waratahs. This was a key game. This was second hosting first in the Australian Conference. This was a really important game. I mean, the Blues Reds, let's be honest, neither side are making the playoffs. Who cares? It's a bit of a dead rubber. This one really mattered though.
Yeah. Very well, and also very good game overall, I have to say. I thought the quality of this game surprised me a lot. It was a proper game of Super Rugby, so maybe things are looking a little bit up in Australian rugby for the moment. In that department, at least, that we have 2 teams that are performing on a good level in Super Rugby.
Yeah, but we kind of got that feeling at the beginning of the season when the Australian teams were just playing themselves and weren't playing anybody else. So I'm not sure how much of it is that but when we get on later and with the Brumbies win over the Hurricanes, there is perhaps a good an argument for that. Within this one, basically the Rebels really got themselves a lead and just showed no patience at all, and just kept the game, which lost them this game. If they showed more patience and looked after the ball better, they should have wrapped this one up, shouldn't they?
Yeah, they will not feel happy with themselves. I mean, basically like the 2 last tries for Waratahs came from intercepts, didn't they?
Yep.
I mean,
so the 2 last tries came from intercepts. The score before those, let me just try and just check that. So yeah, the Reece Hodge had knocked over a bunch of penalty goals, stretched the lead out to 26-17. They got a 9-point lead, so 2-score lead over the Waratahs with an hour gone. And then 2 intercepts in the last 11 minutes, loses them the game. So a major lack of composure. They really didn't need to be put. They weren't chasing the game. They had the lead.
Yeah.
They didn't need to throw any 50-50 passes. They just had to take it into contact, recycle it, and just keep going through the phases. Wait for the Tars to make errors. As I say, Reece Hodges had slotted 3 penalty goals, so that the Tars were giving up penalties, giving up points. Go through the phases, let the Tars give up points. They gave up 14 penalties to the Rebels 8, and the game's yours. But yeah, serious poor.
Yeah. No, especially when you put the stats like that, it's pretty easy to see the picture that this game was certainly there for the Rebels to win. This was one they blew this one.
They did blow this one. I mean, 20 turnovers conceded, admittedly by the Rebels, only 10 by the Tars. And I say 2 of those were those intercepts that we're talking about that gave up those points. A lot of running. I mean, both sides try to play 600 meters running with the Rebels, 400 with the Tars. They both try to play ball, which was good to see. But yeah, total lack of composure by the Rebels in this one, which lost them it, unfortunately.
Yeah. I'd have to give a shout out a little bit to the Waratahs. They've been pretty impressive for some time now. Haven't won every single game, but performance-wise, they've been performing at a pretty high level for some time now, and usually we get the results too.
Yeah, they've got.
Because I thought they handled themselves well against the New Zealand teams, even if they only won one of the games. They were well in it in all 4 of them, actually.
And they've got themselves top of the Australian conference.
Yeah.
It's not, and that's not a fluke. They're there because of the side they've got. And there are some question marks around the coaching, but they're the only settled coaching side. The only coaching side that actually came into this season in the Australian teams, having been the coaches the previous season. You got to say Wessels at the Rebels has done a decent job. We've not heard there could easily have been a very split camp and lots of mutiny going on there with their situation, but he seems to have looked after that well and had a good thing. They just got a thin squad that can't cope with losing Genia.
Yeah. Same thing has happened with the Wallabies.
Yeah, which I mean, one of the things in the second test with the Wallabies was it was Genia pulling the players together to tell them to sort things out, not Hooper. That kind of leadership was clearly missing from the Rebels, as we saw by the number of intercepts and how they threw this game away. And it really just needed one of the senior players to grab the players and say, guys, keep taking it into contact, let's just make sure we have possession and we'll be fine. On a Saturday and another game in the Pacific Islands, obviously the New Zealand teams have been taking games there now for a number of years, and it was the Highlanders' turn to take a home game to Fiji, hosting the Chiefs. And yeah, being outside didn't seem to suit the Highlanders.
No, I mean, that almost looked like fake in the first half. I mean, the Chiefs blew them off the park completely. What were Highlanders doing?
Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs got themselves an early try on 1 minute by Solomon, released by Antonio Brown, who managed to get his hands free. Which is the kind of thing we've been asking him to do, or he was doing for the All Blacks a couple of seasons ago, and it's the kind of thing we've been missing. And while we've been saying that he hasn't been living up to his abilities, this during June or during the season actually, but he got his hands free to release Solomon. There was a good loud crowd, which was fun, and I don't know if you noticed, but this was definitely not a European crowd, okay, or a British crowd. It was noisy during kicking, and as soon as they saw Damien McKenzie smile, they cheered even louder, which was funny to see.
Yeah. No, it's a brilliant crowd, but it's always been like that in this game. This annual game that we take to Suva. I remember last year's game too was a brilliant crowd.
But I think last year it was a bit wet. This year the weather behaved, which was nice. It was a bit windy, and the Highlanders passing game didn't seem to be able to deal with that wind, which is a bit surprising. And with the wind at the back, the Chiefs had the comfort that they knew that the Highlanders couldn't exit very well. They got a couple of early tries, which rattled the Highlanders, and the Highlanders never settled down. And suddenly the Chiefs racked up 42 points in that first half to 0. And at which point I was thinking about, well, do I just turn off? Because, hey, this is just such one-way traffic. But it appears that they were playing on a mountainside, because as soon as they changed ends, the Highlanders suddenly started scoring points. The Chiefs only scored one penalty in that second half, and that was late on. I mean, that was after the hour mark. So the Highlanders came back. They started scoring some tries, but they were missing their conversions, and they left themselves too much to do. They were never going to catch up that kind of lead, were they?
Too little, too late. There's no way. There's no way we're going to catch up.
Yeah, there's no way. So some fantastic play by the Chiefs in the first half. And the Highlanders only made 65% of their tackles, which didn't help them. Liam Messam had a great game as the link man in the backs. And also made a couple of good runs as well, showing that he's still got it on occasion for the old man. I mean, hey, he's only about 10 years younger than I am. But yeah, he had a great game as well. They were trotting out some quotes. So 31 points was the highest margin of the Chiefs beating the Highlanders. That was back in 2001, and that was threatened at half time. But in the second half, yeah, that just disappeared and wasn't talked about much after half time. But it was definitely there. But
it is a worry for Highlanders going into the playoffs that we show like two different phases. Where are we playing? If we're playing at home in Dunedin, we're like a real force. But outside Dunedin, they showed some glaring weaknesses a couple of times now. So
yeah, and they're a team that has travelled well in the past.
Taking for anything that's in the playoffs.
But they're gonna. When it comes to the playoffs, they're going to want to have an easy draw. They're not going to want to obviously pick up either the Crusaders, which I think everyone's going to want to avoid the Crusaders, and if the Jaguares, well, actually, whichever team out of the Africa Conference, it's Jaguares especially, that's going to be a long trip for anybody who goes over there. So I think those are two teams that everyone will be trying to avoid or want to be avoiding come playoffs time. After that, we then headed into the Brumbies versus the Hurricanes. Now, one of your rules when picking in this league has been, if it's a New Zealand side playing, accept the Blues, back them because they win. If it's a New Zealand derby, back the home team, except if it's the Blues. And that would get you about 95 to 99% of those picks correct. You don't need to know much more than that, to be honest. Until Saturday, where the Brumbies, who haven't been great, turned over the Hurricanes.
Yeah, but I wasn't super surprised about this because Hurricanes' form has been questionable for 3, 4, 5 weeks now, and I'm still a little bit surprised that there has been like so little discussion about it. But for a while we blamed the referees, and that was sort of was okay, and no one really saw what's happening on the field because it's a long time now since they put on a really good performance. Hurricanes.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't help.
Even before we start losing, we start playing bad before we actually start losing. We were lucky a couple of times getting out of jail.
Yeah, I mean, the last two losses were both away trips in New Zealand. And I'd say New Zealand derbies back the home team. So alarm bells weren't ringing too loudly because of that, because that's what those games were. But we then start looking at this game and go, okay, so who are we missing? We're missing Artie Surveyor. We're missing Brad Shields, the captain. We're missing Bowden Barrett. We're missing Vince Arso. We're missing Proctor. So we're having to put Geordie Barrett into the centres, which means we're having to put Naimel Scudder at fullback rather than on the wings. And yeah, their depth was starting to be tested, and they clearly rely on some key players, and they lost a bit too much tonight.
Yeah, but there is something in the way we've been playing now for a couple of weeks. It just, they don't seem to be like, they're not clicking, we're not gelling, there's not. Yeah, because remember, yes, they lost away against the Crusaders, and that's a loss everyone can handle. I mean, that's what it looked like in the history books. But if you really recall that game, that was probably like the weakest Crusaders team ever to be put out. The Crusaders have lifted like everyone away pretty much. It was Crusaders B side, and it was the Crusaders B side who played the Hurricanes off the park in the second half, and that made the alarm bells ringing for me at least. Hurricanes should be able to deal with that. These are like All Blacks players that can't handle like the second selection from another Super Rugby team. That tells you that something is wrong.
Yeah, something's definitely was clearly is wrong. I'm not got any notes from the game, but I was doing this totally from memory. But I was impressed particularly by the Brumbies scrum halves. Both had pretty good games, sniping around, particularly Powell, who I think was lively. Muirhead did pretty well as well as came on. The Brumbies, the Hurricanes really got on the wrong side of the ref, and they gave up 12 penalties, twice as many penalties. And when you've got a team like the Brumbies who love a line out and a line out maul, in particular, you really don't want to be giving away penalties and allowing them to kick to the corner. 20 lineouts, they only lost one by the Brumbies. And that's an awful lot of lineouts to be giving away to a side that likes, that really enjoys that kind of set piece, and that's one of their key strengths.
As I recall it, as I recall the game, the Brumbies dominated, especially the second half, pretty strong.
Yep.
They looked like also like, which is more alarmingly, but you could say like the more fit side, you know. It was definitely the Hurricanes were run out of puff, not the Brumbies.
And a lot of people were talking, saying, "Oh, look, the Brumbies are going to win this because they're up." And I'm like, "Yeah." I remember they were they got up on 53 minutes to 17-12. It was still within a score, and even though they were dominating, all it was going to take was one intercept try for the Hurricanes to get back and win it. So I kept on watching that, thinking that's what's going to happen. The Hurricanes got a yellow card in that second half, survived that, didn't give up any points, and you thought, okay, right, they've survived the yellow card, now they're going to kick on, and it never did. It just all those things you expect and you're used to seeing New Zealand sides doing, they didn't, which was the surprise. And then
but you can connect that to do what you said earlier, Bob. When you give up that amount of penalties and also give up that amount of lineouts, I mean, you're never ever going to get any kind of fluency in your own game because you're going to give so much possession and territory to the opponents, like all through the game.
Yeah, all you needed was, let's say, that one intercept, that one moment of brilliance to win the game. In the end, on 77 minutes, so just as the game was finishing off, the Brumbies got that score to get themselves 2 scores ahead, and then it was but it wasn't until that point that this game. So whilst the Brumbies scored twice as many points as the Hurricanes, it wasn't until the last 3 or 4 minutes, even though they were on top. We've just seen so many teams, especially the teams like the Highlanders, defend, bang, they score against you. But that didn't happen tonight. All credit to the Brumbies for closing it out and winning this one.
Yep. And here's also a worrying sign because it was the Sharks who had like a really good opportunity to beat the Hurricanes. And Hurricanes get out of jail with like the last play of the game. And by that time it was like Hurricanes was like still actually able to get out of jail. They can't even do it anymore.
Yep.
Be a real worry.
It is. We then went over to
I mean,
Singapore.
they don't look strong at all. They don't look strong at.
They don't. They're going to need all their players back.
Hurricanes. They haven't looked strong at all for some time.
To start clicking. They went over to Singapore for the Sunwolves versus the Bulls. Now, the Sunwolves had a good couple of games, beating the Reds, beating the Stormers. Then they had a poor tour to Australia as they had all their Japanese players in camp. Now, some of those players haven't come back, but still, the Sunwolves managed a 42-37 win over the Bulls. But looking at the scoreline, you've got to say that the resiliency of the Sunwolves was great here. They went out, they scored a couple of tries in the first quarter to lead 14-0. Were up over the Bulls. The Bulls come back, score 21 points to lead 14-21 at half time. Willie Britz is in the bin at half time as well. And so suddenly what's looked like a promising lead has been turned around. The Bulls have got themselves ahead. And then in the second half, it was a matter of the Sunwolves trying to come back, and the Bulls were just about holding them at arm's length. As we were getting more tries by the Sunwolves, but the penalty goals by Pollard was just keeping the Bulls ahead. So coming into the last 10 minutes, and it was was the hare going to catch the tortoise? And in the end, the hare did just enough to come back and overtake the tortoise. Did you see this one? Are you trying to talk and I can't see? And you've Herman looks like he's frozen, unfortunately.
Hold on.
Are you back?
I can sort of hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Is this like poor network connection? But let's give it a try. Okay. Did you see this game? Did you see this game?
So I went through I saw this. I've seen the highlights, and it looked like.
Okay, no, I saw the full game.
So it looks like Little had a good game, and Little and Parker both.
Yeah, Little and Parker, both. I mean, they are. I wonder if I'm starting to get curious if they are on any radar for New Zealand Super Rugby teams, because they are proving themselves on like week in, week out on a very, very high level of Super Rugby play. I mean, Hayden, you're a stat guy, Paul. You know, Hayden Parker, he's 97% for conversions and penalties, 97.
And he was 6 from 6 tonight as well.
How good is that?
Oh, it's very good. And hi, Mr. Rugby World Cup. Thank you for joining us on Periscope. He was 6 from 6 on the night, spot on with his conversions, running things well. I mean, 19 clean breaks by the Sunwolves to 8 by the Bulls showed that whilst they had less possession, less territory, they did more with it when they had the ball than the Bulls did, which is why from less runs they ended up with 160 more meters run than the Bulls did as well. So I think they were definitely good value for their win.
No. Oh yeah. I mean, I have a little bit of a soft spot for the Sunwolves. I told you last week. You told me no, Sunwolves not going to win any more games this season. Eh? I told you they will. And look at what they're doing. Late comeback win, the final minute.
And they did. Yeah, it was a late win that they needed, but they were chasing it down from quite a long. For that whole second half, it wasn't just a last minute gasp. They were on the coattails of the Bulls all the way through. That was another dead rubber, but this following game wasn't So the Sharks, thinking that they have an outside chance to make the playoffs and to catch the Jaguares, maybe. The Lions looking at basically trying to cement their place in as the top Africa side. The Lions have not lost to a South African side since 2015, but the Sharks managed to do it on the night.
Yeah, they had like 21 straight wins over South African opposition.
It was a very good record by
They did.
the Lions. But on the night, defence of the Sharks was top notch, 89% tackling, whereas the Lions with 70% tackling, that really let them down. Even so, they had most of the territory, most of the possession, but just couldn't break down this Sharks side. And the Sharks, I mean, line-out mauls, when we come to South African games, unsurprisingly, line-outs were a key part to this. The Sharks line-out maul for the first one. The Lions come back and dummy the line-out maul and throw over the top to Warren Whiteley and going in the corner.
Hold on, I have a poor connection here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll keep talking. They managed to get a couple of tries to get themselves 11-21 up at half time with some pretty poor tackling by the Sharks, uncharacteristically in this game. But the Sharks came back in the second half and didn't allow the Lions to score one penalty, and managed to get themselves over with too many players into the corner. Then they also managed to get themselves into the get Mabobo intercept, and there's no one going to catch him once he had got the ball. So congratulations, the Sharks got themselves back into this playoffs. The next result is going to say why they're unlikely to get there, but the Lions definitely have their top position is up for grabs right now. Mr. Rugby World Cup says, as Tars fan, I'm worried about the Sunwolves this weekend. They are building confidence. They are, and whilst they are obviously out of the playoff race, that third win over the Bulls is going to give them lots of confidence coming into playing the Tars this weekend. You would think after the Tars win over the Rebels that a win over the Sunwolves will basically secure them the top of the table mathematically, because I think they go away to the Hurricanes for their last game of the season. So they'll want to probably have things wrapped up ahead of time if they can do, but we'll have to see about that one. Final game of the round was the Jaguares hosting the Stormers. Obviously, the Jaguares were on that 6-game winning streak going into the international break. Then went away with the Pumas, had a dreadful June, losing all three of their games against Wales and Scotland, and then come back, and they haven't missed a beat. So clearly, there's something about the camp here. Obviously, Super Rugby isn't the same level as international rugby, but also the style and the way they were playing changed. Sanchez got an early penalty to get them onto the board. We then saw some amazing football work from Delgi off the back of off a scrum. So obviously a bit more space because all the forwards are tied up, but even so, Delgi still managed to step into the way around several players before going in. Then on a turnover, a chip over the top, Petty collected it and run it over for a try, and it was all looking like one-way traffic at that point, because because Sanchez was hitting his kicks as well, and so they ran out to a 15-0 lead on 15 minutes. So scoring a point a minute, and I say it all looked like one-way traffic. The Stormers did come back. Their number 8 managed to burst through to get themselves a try to get themselves a try to get themselves back into the game before half time. But then come the second half, and Petit made another break from a turnover. Again, from about 60 metres out, got stopped just short of the line, but the ball was spun wide, and the Jaguares went in. Dylan Lades came back and got it again, stepped through for a try from fullback, which kept the game open, kept the game alive on 60 minutes. But a Jaguares penalty sealed things up in the end. That really does, with the Jaguares having a game in hand over the Lions. I think there's still 3 points behind them, but a win, obviously, in that game in hand will put the Jaguares top of the Africa Conference, and a home quarter-final is definitely within their grasp. That's an amazing situation that I don't think any of us were expecting to see, even quite a way into the season. But this run of 7 wins on the trot really has put the Jaguares into contention. And I don't think any side is going to be comfortable travelling to Argentina to take them on. So that's my roundup of all the action from the weekend. Thank you for joining me on Periscope. If you tap the screen, it gets all the hearts, so that's lovely. If you're watching on YouTube, then please do like and don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well. Hopefully, going forward, we'll be having all the shows on Periscope and YouTube, so you can watch it whichever way whichever way you prefer. Rugby World Cup says Jaguares topping the group will be amazing, and that is very true. It will be amazing. So we'll have to see if they can do that. It would be fantastic for the game to see them do that. I think being the being the expansion team, and also being the first sort of non-traditional team to make the playoffs. So thank you very much for joining me, and I'll be back tomorrow night with the Hash Rugby Chat. So do join me then, and we will be looking at talking about the Super Rugby structure, which has been big news over the last week.